So yeah, you know, I don't know if all INTJ personality type people out there think like me, but I do see it quite a bit. And that's, we typically don't make jokes. It's rare, and it's a very dry sense of humor if we do. And we typically really don't have a horse in any given race, so like LGBTQIA plus, we're pretty logical, and it just comes naturally. So, we don't really care about trying to impress people or try to care, about what people think of any given social norms and stuff. Typically think for ourselves and question, the way things are. Mainly because, we care more about what we want, what we think, what we care about than what other people care about. And I think there's a lot of personality types that just go with what is popular, what is trending. And the only time INTJ people do that is usually, again, they care about the final reward that they're going to get. They care about that end goal. And they don't care about anything really in between, usually. Usually we will dabble into that stuff if we need to, or if, for me, for example, sometimes I'll go into that middle ground that's not really needed to be fleshed out. If if I want to make videos, and I'm aware of some content I could make in that middle ground, just to have an idea for a video, then I'll talk about it and I'll discuss it. Otherwise, I would much rather just focus on the best, the most optimum, the final product, and not really talk about how I got to that point, how I, like when I talk about audio equipment, video equipment, I can tell you exactly why I use the equipment I do. Look at the autofocus on this. It's extremely fast, accurate, and a lot of cameras are not that good. Stuff like that, So, but like when it comes to making YouTube videos, you got to churn out so many videos. It never ends, it never stops. It's just an endless grind. Then, for example, I'll talk about every camera on the market, every lens on the market. I'm willing to do that, but I would rather just say I'm using a wide aperture lens that takes in a lot of light. So this room does not need to be very bright. Most cameras like cell phones or webcams or cameras on your, laptop, or, they're not going to have a very good indoor light performance. They're going to have to boost the ISO, which is going to add a ton of grain to the image. Stuff like that. While the ISO on this is probably around 100, and it's probably blown out if I get my hand too close to the camera, because the light bulb is close to the camera. So it's going to just blow it out with this intense bright light. So technically the camera can't lower the ISO enough, because it takes in way too much light, even with just one light bulb. Or I could talk about all the lenses that have a narrow aperture lens and they don't have that background blur bokeh, So, but what's the point? Those are not good for indoors with low light situations. So again, I would rather talk about the optimum sound signatures for microphones and headphones. I would rather just recommend the best I could possibly find. But technically, I could talk about every headphone, every microphone on the market if I wanted to. It would just be a severe waste of energy, but it would be able to tell you what's wrong with all of the equipment out there. But who cares, right? It's all about that end goal, to get the good equipment, move on with your life. So INTJ people are kind of like that. They don't care about social norms or what other people think or use, or there's so many options, there's so much variety out there. We only really care about like what matters, what's optimum, what's the most efficient, and that's it. The only time like we're really passionate is about getting to that end goal. So I've noticed a lot of INTJ people will complain that other people are not doing that. They're not offering the final product. They're just selling you random garbage. They're just hyping up, low quality, imperfect products, for example. So, I think that's one of the biggest things that bothers INTJ people is when they see other people not, getting to the end point, completing to the final product. They're kind of just wishy-washy and all over the place and turning things into a hobby. INTJ people, I honestly don't think they like turning things into a hobby that is overly open-minded. I think INTJ people tend to be more on the conservative side of things. While still like being independently thinking, mainly because like if you're more liberal in a lot of things, it tends to be like a bunch of garbage. Like again, like if you think about the LGBTQIA plus community, it's just a lot of emotion driven belligerence that doesn't really matter. Like it's more about expressing yourself, which a lot of INTJ people are known to not express themselves. They're known to wear pretty basic clothing, to be pretty boring, have a dry sense of humor. So when you have people that are very passionate about expressing themselves at the expense of accuracy and perfection, like, again, like if I was to be transgender, I wouldn't go through with the surgeries or anything because it's not really good enough. It's not, it wouldn't be good enough. I don't know. But some people are perfectly okay with things that are not good enough. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to like not care while you see plenty of people who actually do care. It's kind of like, I remember like, a lot of people will get upset if you insult them. They'll take it personally. They'll be like, oh, this guy insulted me, called me something. Oh, I feel so insulted. I'm mad. Typically, like, I actually like hate it when people give me compliments or like pity compliments. That's what bothers me, because typically when I see somebody insulting someone, you can see that they're suffering and they have like a mental problem, and that's the reason why they just go around attacking people. But like, when somebody like pities you and kind of goes easy on you, that's when you're, it starts to affect me. I'm like, oh my God, is it, it's that bad. It's that. So yeah, pity compliments. Yeah. Terrible. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that INTJ people, like, I don't know, they don't really care about a lot of things, but they're very passionate about, fixing things or making things perfect. And they can be, it's kind of weird because, sometimes, INTJ people can get really obsessed with tunnel vision over certain things. And maybe it's just also just OCD and obsessive compulsive stuff, but like, it's kind of nice to be around people that have other hobbies and interests. Like, again, I used to be into sci-fi, video games, very particular sci-fi video games, just like a handful of them. But technically, they're constantly coming out with new sci-fi video games all the time that offer a lot that I completely overlooked. So to have like a severe tunnel vision focus on things, yeah, it's terrible. I think INTJ people have a tendency to do that. to hyper focus on very specific things that they deem the best or the most interesting, when in reality there's a lot of stuff out there to focus on that's just as good, if not better. So I think INTJ people are actually really good at being devil's advocates and open-minded, just to humor new ideas and what's out there. But typically, since they're so bland and boring, I think they need other people to like show them those things. Like they're not going to find it on their own usually. So INTJ people tend to be hyper focused on very specific things and get really good at very specific things. But I think it benefits them to be around particular people. Typically, again, like INTJ has like a very judging, the J, but prospecting, INTP, for example, prospecting, they tend to be more like spaghetti brained, where they just roam around and, you know, learn random things from like 50,000 different hobbies, and they can like share those hobbies with an INTJ person that's hyper focused on just like a handful of hobbies, that can like open their mind up to see what's out there, prospecting, so that INTJ people can, you know, select new hobbies and interests to delve into and to get good at. So yeah, I think that's beneficial. Anyway,